Thank you, Amal, and thank you for inviting me for this very important and prestigious conference on the most important trend in insurance industry today. Actually, over the previous session, we've seen a lot of benefits and the chief fruits of implementing digitalization in insurance. Now it's the time to dig into more details about the hands-on experience and sharing some success stories and experience by our distinguished panelists. So I ask each panelist to present from 5 to 10 minutes to be able to have another views, different opinion, and take some question. Actually, the main focus is how to move from the product-centric business model to the customer-centric business model, taking into consideration all digitalization, digital tools, and how to leverage the digital tools in insurance industry. So I will start with my first panelist, Mr. Jansen. You already gave us a crystal clear understanding about innovation and the competition in insurance and digitalization in insurance industry. But I still have a couple of questions for you. The first one, based on your experience, what are the top 3 success factors for digital transformation in insurance?
That is a great question. So thank you, Dr. Tarek, for allowing me to join your panel. And thank you for the question. And this builds nicely on the presentation which I've just given. And if I could summarize the top 3 success factors from my perspective for digital transformation, the first one I would say is it has to be business-led and value-driven, okay? If your CIO is running your digital transformation, you've got it wrong, okay? It needs to be business-designed, business-led, and business-driven, and it has to be based on where the value is. So there cannot be any tolerance for the development of a digital services for the sake of having a digital services. It needs to impact the bottom line of the company. You need to have a clear business case for it, and you need to be able to track that business case. The second thing I would say is that agility needs to be built in. So I talked a little bit about what an agile digital organization looks like. In order to have that level of agility, you need to have the ability to change prices quickly. You need to have the ability to change customer journeys quickly. You need to have the ability to modify your products quickly. And you need to have the ability to change your marketing quickly, okay? So all the agility should be built in across governance, across technology, across processes to allow that to happen. And then finally, the third thing I would say is it's really critical to define your technology and data blueprint from day one, okay? A piecemeal solution will only store up problems from the future. If you get the architecture right from day one, this sets you up for success. And what you find is that it becomes easier to integrate into new ecosystems and add new components to your architecture.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. I think this is very important because many insurance companies today, they treat digitalization just as a fashion. They don't have a clear process or framework how to implement digital transformation. So my second question is, there is a lot of discussion about the technology debt. So what is this exactly, and how insurance companies can address this challenge?
Yeah, another great question, Dr. Tarek, and this is something which I touched on as well. So technology debt has arisen as a challenge because of the rapid advance of new technologies and the fact that these technologies build on each other, okay? What it means is it reflects the cost of additional rework that is caused by choosing the easy way of doing something rather than the architecturally correct way of doing something. Put simply, if you don't make the right investments in the right areas from day one, all you're doing is storing up problems in the future, and you probably have to reinvest more to fix it, okay?
Okay.
This is a significant challenge for insurance companies who haven't invested in digital for the last couple of years, and it can be quite a big barrier. What I'd say is addressing this barrier has never been easier, okay? First of all, there's lots of examples of best practice that can provide guidance on what to do. the rapid expansion of cloud services have reduced the level of capital investment required to build digital capabilities, and also the ever-expanding ecosystem of insurtechs also mean that you can deploy digital services in a faster and low-cost way than you once did. Okay, so it is a challenge, but I do think there's a way back from it, Dr. Tarek.
Okay, thank you. Our next panelist is Mr. Shahid. Mr. Shahid is from PwC with a great experience across the Middle East and GCC countries in consultancy and insurance. So, Mr. Shahid, I'd like to ask you about what does it mean, the digital fulfillment? Because I think some insurance companies, they try to push conventional and traditional products through the digital channels. So what do you think in this? Is it a right approach or not?
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Tarek, and good afternoon to all my fellow panelists. Great question. Thank you for asking that. I think digital fulfillment is it's an interesting idea that a lot of people don't actually fully appreciate or understand. If you think about our industry, certainly in a growth market such as the GCC, a lot of insurance products have typically been designed for distribution. What I mean by distribution is obviously for sales and delivery via what is considered traditional insurance distribution channels. So a lot of face-to-face interaction typically is involved in that process. What a lot of organizations don't appreciate is you can't just necessarily take these products that were designed maybe a few years ago or have been a few years in the making and evolution and be expected to distribute them with the same impact via a digital medium. You can't deliver a product via a mobile app and provide the kind of experience that people are expecting and that you want to provide in a mechanism that has been designed historically for a lot of face-to-face interaction, a lot of Q&A, a lot of responses, or the product may itself be such that it requires a lot of investigation, exploration before it can be sold from end to end. So digital fulfillment is more about organizations being able to consider what that means in terms of the medium that they're using. So it's great to have an app. It's great to have a website that allows interaction around the clock, it allows engagement, but you also have to consider the aspects of the product that you're trying to deliver through that channel. It has to be designed with that fulfillment in mind. People who buy products or use mobile phones for engaging with service providers expect to do so in a matter of clicks and a matter of minutes. They don't want to be in a position or in a situation where they're entering details or they're in the process of purchasing something, but then are stopped midway because something has come up that requires them to then move off that channel and engage with someone physically or wait for a callback, etc. And the way a product is designed will allow an organization to make sure that all of these factors are considered in the design process so that when fulfillment happens, it happens seamlessly and it happens on the chosen channel in the medium that the customer is engaging with them. In this case, let's say mobile or web.
Okay, thank you. Actually, this leads us to another important question. How can insurers leverage digital tools appropriately?
A great, interesting question. And I think Jonathan touched on this previously, and also in his presentation, I was listening in on that. It was very insightful. A lot of organizations, and I try to choose my words wisely, will jump onto the digital bandwagon just because they have a fear of missing out, or they think it's the next best thing and they need to be involved. But what they don't really appreciate is, am I using technology for technology's sake, or am I using it to really add business value where value is derived or expected or can be attained? And it's great that there's a lot of innovation happening in the digital space. The whole insurtech environment is coming up with lots of solutions and ideas and innovations that are going to make life for people in our sector much more accessible, but as well as a lot more successful. there is this tendency to use technology just for the sake of using technology. And that's where things begin to fall over. So if you've argued for an investment case to implement a new platform, whatever that platform may be, because you think it's great, the technology is amazing, you've seen it used elsewhere and it's had some great results, but your particular environment is not geared for that, or it's not set up appropriately, or your customer base is not really well clued up to be able to maximize that, or your internal users may not be in a position to appreciate and get the maximum value from that investment, then it's going to be seen as a failure. And then if it's seen as a failure, then any future innovation, any future adoption of technology is going to be always questioned, because people are going to say, well, you did something, it cost a lot of money, but it didn't deliver the benefits or the business outcomes that we were hoping for. What's the point in doing this? And that's where stagnation occurs and things begin to slow down and innovation is stifled. So I think being able to leverage those tools appropriately, understanding the problem that you're trying to address, as opposed to trying to create a problem for a solution that you have, is key in making sure that organizations invest wisely, they pick the solutions and tools that they're using wisely, and they do it in a manner which addresses the problems at hand and builds on that over time. So it's not more of a sea change, it's more of a step change type of exercise, and you build up capability and maturity over a period of time, and you take everyone along in that journey.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Actually, also, I would like to focus on the need for this digitally skilled people in the insurance industry, because we have a very wide gap. I will echo Mr. Talal Zain, but he used nicer words than me, that insurance is lagging far behind banking and other industries. So I think it's very important that your answer is very important to put the digital transformation in reality to overcome all gaps in this area. Thank you, Mr. Shahid. So now I will go for our next speaker, Mr. Robin. Mr. Robin is an expert in customer experience, is consultant in customer experience. So I would like to ask you about the COVID-19. Has COVID-19 impacted in customer insurance, customer experience in Bahraini insurance market or not, and how?
Great question, Dr. Tarek. I think there's a lot more than just insurance that's been impacted. I think a lot of the financial services still like the option of go to branch, okay? And really COVID-19 has put going visiting anywhere to bed, okay? And obviously the more online services we've got, and that's what customers are expecting, is what Jonathan alluded to, okay? We have to move forward and quickly, okay? I recognize that when the front-end technology, it could take time to develop. However, there are certain quick wins that can be achieved and should be, okay? I look forward as a person over 60 with some underlying health conditions to renewing my medical aid, my medical cover in 2 months. I just don't know how I'm going to do it yet. It'll be fun to find out, okay? BNI were great at the beginning of the year with my car insurance. It just suddenly went digital. So there are quick wins, okay? What people should try and avoid is just put a bit like Shahid, you don't put in technology for the sake of putting it in. Talk to your customers, find out what they want, find out how they want it, and work with them. So this brings in customer journey mapping, okay? I'm a great believer, get the management team to map the key touch points of your business. So if you're in insurance, it's open, renew, and claim. Just work with the management team and get them to write down what they think the customer journey map is. Then go to, say, the group of detractors, customers who aren't overly happy with your service, and find out what their real journey is like. And then use that as a starting point for changing the technology that the customers will be using.
Thank you. Also, I would like you to give more emphasis on why customer experience is so important for insurance industry today.
Okay, so we're in a dramatically changing landscape. Digital transformation will be done better by some than others, but ultimately in the insurance sector, all the companies will offer generally the same products and services, generally at the same sort of price. The only thing that will actually make a difference in the end of it is the customer experience. And customer experience is about emotions, okay? In 1992, a lady by the name of Dr. Elizabeth Sanders came up with a really simple business tool called the job to be done. And the first step is, if you're a customer and you're working on, I don't know, an insurance claim, the process to meet the objective. And it's very simple, yes or no. If the answer is no, then you've got a failed customer experience point, and therefore you've got a call to the contact center, and the customer's not feeling particularly good at that point in time. After did I achieve what I wanted to? The second part is, was it easy to do? Okay, and this is where the people designing the front end to the business, this is where it becomes critical. This is your customer journey mapping. This is user experience design. Was it easy? There are well-known metrics such as customer effort score that can be used. Was it easy for me to do it? 0 to 5. And then the last one, the last part of her pyramid is, how did I feel at the end of it? So you can apply this to a single touch point for a single customer. You can do this for multiple touch points in your business. You can use this this is a key part to customer journey mapping. But at the end result is, how did you feel? It's only when the customers will vote with their feet if they don't feel great at the end of it. If you take this on a long-term view and use the Net Promoter System and run this over time, these emotions show through for any group of personas, and that will make the difference between success and failure on your bottom line.
Thank you. From your experience, Mr. Robin, do you think that most of insurance companies, they understand the concept of customer experience correctly? I'm
lucky that I don't actually interact often with insurance. Generally, it's just a case of renew.
Or even generally speaking, I mean the business unit, business, they understand the concept correctly, or they just treat it as a fashion and a buzzword to be used in marketing materials and mission statement.
I'm not totally convinced yet, Tarek. There's still too much fascination with paperwork. Just go back to Dame Inga at the beginning. It's paperwork, it's company stamps, it's rubber stamps. The government's done some really great pieces of work where they've managed to get an awful lot of that removed. Okay, in fact, the government's probably the leaders in this area. And I think industry has to catch up with the government in this case.
Okay.
Dr. Tarek, would you mind if I built on that with a practical example?
Sure. Please.
Yeah. In one project that I worked on, we did some analysis of customer drop-off rates according to website load time. Okay. And what we saw was effectively an exponential decrease in the customers staying on the site if there was long page load times, if it took a long time for prices to come. To the point, what was clear was that there was no tolerance for bad customer experience. If the site took longer than a second to load, forget it, they were gone. They went to the next insurance website because there's no tolerance for that. So we had to get load times for screens, for prices, for policy dispatch to be actually below a third of a second is when we found that the customer drop-off rates declined. So I think that's a practical analytical example of zero tolerance for bad customer experience. So that's level one. And then the next level is personalization. So people expect personalized customer experience. They expect experiences which are relevant to them, which interact with them in the way that they want to interact. Okay, if they want conversational, they want to do that. If they want to go to a website, they want to do that. If they want a mobile app, they need that option as well. So I fully support what Robin is saying.
Okay, thank you. So I'll move to the next panelist, Mr. Ahmed Radhi. Ahmed can turn on the, yeah, okay. Mr. Ahmed, I know that you have a unique experience in IT, digitalization, compliance, company culture, and corporate governance. So I have a couple of questions for you. What are the main areas to be considered for successful digital transformation journey in insurance? And also, I don't want to go deeply in regulatory and the cultural aspects, but if you can touch them within your answer, it will be great.
Thank you, Doctor. Before I start, I would like to thank CBB, BIBF, and BNH for hosting this important event and for their invitation to share my experience today as a panelist, and I welcome all the audience. Doctor, this is very important question about the areas that to be considered for successful digital transformation journey. And due to the time constraints, I will be covering 5 main areas that play a major role to make the digital transformation journey successful. The first point here is the technology and the IT vendor that we will deal with. It's very important to align the vision of the company with the IT vendor. So misalignment of the vision would maybe lead to failure at the end. And using the right technology from the beginning, also something very vital. I would like also to emphasize on an important aspect here is the partnership with InsurTech startup. This is something that needs to be studied thoroughly because we saw some of the new startup companies that disappeared quickly or didn't sustain. So before any partnership, we need to look into this very seriously. And the second point here is the internal talent, which I believe it has been covered today by a panelist or the speakers, that we need to recruit, develop, and retain the right technical skills to allow us to transform digitally. The third point is the consumer behavior and experience. And this is also has been covered today by some of the speakers. Before launching any services, we should ask ourselves a question: what value that digital service will bring to our customer? And to think of providing the customer with a simple and enjoyable experience. And here I will talk about some of the approaches to be adopted, like design thinking and agility. And fourth area is the regulatory changes. Due to digitalization, there will be new regulation, new laws. So the companies has to adapt and comply at the same time. Here I would like to also thank the Central Bank of Bahrain for their support to the internal market to transform digitally through their initiatives. Some of them like the establishment of the fintech unit, the sandbox rules and regulation to allow the fintech company to launch their digital solutions, and the launch of the cloud rules and regulation that allows the entire market to host the services on the cloud. So internationally, regulators face a challenge with the rapid pace of technology. The last point, which is, I believe, is the most important point in the entire digital transformation journey, which is the culture, which I believe some of the organization, they don't pay a lot of attention to the importance of the culture. In my opinion, digital transformation all about organization culture change. We should create a forward-thinking culture with innovative mindset. In my opinion, these are very vital areas to be considered for any digital transformation journey.
Thank you. And also this leads to the second question. what are the main tools may help the insurance organization or insurance company in achieving customer excellence and creating a competitive edge or uncontested area of competition?
Yeah, this is another important aspect of the tools that company can use to achieve the customer excellence and gaining a competitive advantage. In my opinion, using the right technology for data analytics, for artificial intelligence, machine learning are very important to understand the customer behavior and customer trend. We have data collected from many sources, from the website, from mobile apps, from social media. So it's very important we have the proper technology to read, analyze these data so we can offer the right product at the right time and price. So I believe these are some of the tools important for achieving customer excellence.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. Thank you for answering the question. And now I will have some question for Mr. Peter. Definitely, Mr. Peter has unmatched experience in insurance consultancy, actuary, and claims analysis. So for the time being, some people, they think that the paperless community or digitalization is just a buzzword or fashion. And it's very difficult to be achieved. Some people, they said that the paperless society is about as plausible as the paperless bathroom. It's impossible to be achieved. However, I think the digital transformation play a very important role in enhancing and improving the customer expectation, but that cannot be unilaterally true in some cases. So what are the main obstacles make the life difficult in reality? Obstacles to implement the digital transformation in insurance, and how insurance companies may respond to these challenges?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Tarek, and thank you for the opportunity to participate today. On an annual basis, the Forbes magazine publishes a list of the 100 most innovative companies globally. And for the last 5 years or so running, we have not yet seen one insurer make it to that list. And the sad fact of the matter is that insurance product innovation is often seen as something that is frankly not in the best interest of the company, which is an odd paradox, but there are some reasons why innovation or the transformation to a true digital experience is going to be difficult and is difficult for our industry. One of them is legal. We heard our story from Dame Inga before, but the strength of our policy, the product that we sell as an industry, is in part due to the fact that it hasn't changed for decades or hundreds of years, and as a result, the customer has a real solid expectation of how the policy will respond. And that stability is something we'll have to preserve no matter how much innovation we have on the other parts of the customer experience. Fighting against innovation as well are some of the regulatory trends that are present in some marketplaces. We see concerns about collusion preventing certain types of optimization in the northern part of Europe, and in the United States, we see regulators prohibiting the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence so that they can understand rate generation. But I think a good example of how insurers have tried and have encountered struggles in the transformation comes in the area of privacy. One really innovative use of technology has been mobile telematics to assist insurers in pricing insurance policies and providing services during the policy term. And mobile telematics companies like TrueMotion provide an app that has all of these services that insurers can utilize. But recently, Apple and other phone providers have realized that allowing unfettered access to location services of a phone means that a customer may have certain app providers seeing what they're doing in ways that is counter to their interests. So they send a lot of alerts to the users, and the sad fact is that the users disable location services and the customers don't have a telematics experience. And in some cases, they haven't had access to things like crash detection. So insurers who want to innovate will have to work not just with customers and do moment of truth type of testing, as our colleagues talked about. They'll also have to work with these other parties, the legal community, the regulatory community, and in some cases, digital partners to find solutions to these challenges.
Okay, thank you. Also, there is a common perception of digital transformation in insurance that the customer just purchase part of the insurance value chain using technology. But I think this is not the right way to talk or to identify the digital transformation. So how can the insurance company apply the digital transformation for the whole supply chain of insurance services, and especially after sales or after purchasing services?
Well, we heard earlier from Sid how AXA is using pre-fill on the purchase experience. And I think many insurers today are very aware of the need to provide a better customer care experience after purchase. And it's relatively common to have an app or a mobile experience where a customer can change their address or change a vehicle or get paperless delivery of documents and coverage proof. But some insurers are starting to go beyond that. And a customer of ours in Thailand is using the mobile video capture capability of the phone to enable the post-sale vehicle inspection process. In Thailand, a vehicle needs to be inspected before coverage is afforded and is enacted. And typically that means going to a shop or something. But this insurer is using the video capture and an interactive experience with the customer to complete that vehicle inspection entirely on the property of the customer using the mobile phone. And that's one example. Another example is after a policy is enacted in private healthcare insurance. We have a customer in Latin America who's done a complete AI and natural language processing enabled end-to-end treatment validation process. So a customer has certain information that they key in on a text messaging session with the insurer's app, as well as a document which they scan and upload. And through the OCR and the rest of the process, the entire treatment authorization process is entirely automated. And as we heard earlier, Jonathan talked about, and others, if a part of the process is not automated, the process is not automated. But in this case, the customer sees an entire end-to-end experience of the treatment authorization. So there's a number of examples where the insurers are dealing with the challenge of, do we have a high touch or a low touch digitally enabled customer experience? And when they utilize technologies post-sale, they can really enhance the lifetime value of their customers.
Okay, thank you. Also, from your experience, do you think that digital transformation can be applied equally on personal and commercial lines in insurance?
Well, I started my career in the commercial line sector, and I would say that we've actually had more innovation on an end-to-end basis in the commercial lines businesses than personal lines businesses. It's just not well known because not many people see the B2B side of insurance or the commercial purchase side of insurance. But it was quite a while ago that we had electronic interaction on automatic border row acceptances for instantaneous coverage. Telematics for the day-to-day driver is the current incarnation of fleet telematics, which began earlier to that. So some of our product information and asset tracking and remote sensing technologies, which we like to see in homes, are really the cheaper, more affordable versions of technologies that have been around for a while and used by commercial insurers. I do think the future for commercial insurance digital innovation is very bright and exciting. It tends to be less regulated, and we recently saw pay-as-you-go drone insurance in a digital partnership get announced, which I thought was very interesting. I didn't know there was such a large market for that. And I think the future will see seamless integration end-to-end on the B2B side of insurance or the commercial insurance purchase and experience. And we might even see an open market risk sharing kind of environment for certain types of capacity driven risks like catastrophe reinsurance.
Yeah, if I can just build on that, I would fully agree with that, Peter. Commercial insurance is inherently more complex, and actually there's more scope for innovation. So particularly if you look at the technologies that people are using for proactive risk management, you know, for example, there's people that are using GPS data and geolocation to manage storms off the coast of Oman and the flood surges that result from that. There's people using big data sources to track marine vessels around the world, looking at their maintenance history and looking at how long they're spending at sea versus in port and so on, and are using that to risk assess the quality of a risk at binding. So I fully agree that there's a lot of innovation happening in commercial lines, which isn't as publicized, I think is a good word, but it's certainly really interesting.
I agree.
Yeah,
when it's publicized, it's often publicized negatively. The topic that we'll hear a lot about in the next couple of weeks will be cyber risk and proactive risk assessment, data delivery, and updates. And there's a small number of companies whose innovation might become front page news after some of the recent incursions that we've seen in the US and other places. So it will come and go from the headlines, though, because commercial insurance doesn't tend to be the type of dinner conversation that the everyday consumer takes a hold of.
Yeah, actually, I do agree that the digital transformation or digital tools enhancing the underwriting in commercial lines, developing new underwriting tools through the Internet of Things and smart devices. But my question again, can we develop a fully fledged digital process for commercial lines, starting from placing the risk, assessing the risk engineer process, negotiation, reinsurance, and claims settlement as well?
The interesting thing about commercial lines innovation, in my experience, is I've had 35 years and I started my career in that area. Innovation is hot in a hard market, and then it tends to go away in a soft market when coverage goes below rational low prices. So right now we're in a hard market in many parts of the world for a number of interesting lines of coverage. And the product innovation and other factors that lead to deal with the issue of a hard market will be invested in. So we'll see parametric flood coverage come back in vogue, and we'll see insurers write a dual trigger policies that respond when the parametric policy has basis risk to an underlying risk. So innovation does get a lot of investment during the hard parts of the cycle, and during the soft parts of the cycle, it tends to be a commoditized world where innovation, in my experience, is not as hot a thing to invest in. And also that when I started in the industry, underwriters used to say that the length of the hard cycle and long and soft cycle were roughly the same. But in my 35 years, the hard markets have been very, very brief, and the soft markets have been long in duration. And I think that's been a force pushing against the investment in innovation on the commercial side. If the opposite had been true, I think we would have seen more innovation in the marketplace. We're in a hard market now, so I think we will see some innovation in the short term.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I think we have only 3 minutes to have one question or to hear another opinions from the floor if they have. Any question? Okay.
Dr. Tarek, I received a question in the Q&A, which I can see. And that question was, in a small market like Bahrain, does it justify the cost of building and managing an aggregator? Okay. I would argue that why would you build an aggregator for Bahrain? Why wouldn't you take an aggregator from another market, at least the platform, and bring it to Bahrain? And ultimately, when you talk about insurance companies being on it or being off it, the customer decides if an aggregator comes and it has that option and the customers like it, it'll be very difficult for people to stay off it. If you look at mature markets like the UK and the US, aggregators have a very strong market niche. There is a particular segment of customers that likes to work on an aggregator. And I believe customers here will be the same.
Okay, thank you. So we reached the end of the session. Before leaving, I would like to thank you all the esteemed panelists, and to thank all the sponsors of the conference, CBB, BIBF, BN.